Welcome back. If you just join us, it's Women's World on Global Television. And joining us today is Dr. Tina Orode King, founder and chief executive officer of the Kiajer Youth Empowerment Initiative. Through her organization, she has worked extensively in community development, youth empowerment, entrepreneurship training, agricultural development, and educational intervention across Abuja, Nasarawa, and Niger State, as well as the community in FCT, Kuje, and Buhari. Our passion is rooted in ensuring that children are in classrooms rather than on the streets, and that communities are empowered to build sustainable future despite circumstances. Dr. Tina Orode King, welcome to Women's World.
Thank you very much for having me, ladies.
It's good to see you.
It's good to be here. Yes, that is true. Okay. That is true.
I like the physique. It shows there's a lot of drive to what you do. You look quite different from what I was looking out for, and in a very good way, actually. Yeah. So I like the whole appearance.
Okay.
Well, let's stick to the conversation. You do a lot of work, and I see your work is cut across beyond the FCT, and it's about putting out a good future for younger generations. And what a time to talk about it, looking at what the situation of the country is, and that attention is now moving to schools, and that's also one of your area of strength, education as well. So Kike, I want to start on that conversation.
Actually, I wanted to ask, when we have conversation about insecurity, we often focus on physical attack and casualty, but in your work in communities, what impacts do family experience that public really talk about?
Thank you very much once again, ladies, for bringing me in to talk about what impact our society. I hope the guys or men don't feel biased that we are on a show called Women's World.
It's Women's World.
It's Women's World. Awesome. Yeah, the communities that we, in answer to your question, the communities we attend to, we're actually across the 36 states within the federation. The communities we deal with, we experience different scenarios, but today we are talking about insecurity. When we go to, for example, in Nasarawa, we went there to train women in skill acquisition, skill building, and the main thing the women basically said they lack skills. When we did our baseline survey, that's what they needed. They said, we don't have means of producing income, and it's only our husbands produce income. And so we took our program there to empower them for a number of 3 days in bead making. And also we helped them with initial package for them to start to initiate their own business, and which they were very pleased. And what we do, we try not to politicize our work. That is because of this government or that government. That's why this community is not thriving over the other community. We come in with open mind as an NGO. Kiajer comes in with an open mind to interfere and intervene in the lives of these women and children in particular. The vision that birthed this organization, Kiajer, the vision is the fact that I witnessed children hawking on the streets, when they're supposed to be in classrooms. And that really upset me, it broke me. So, from that day, I vowed to myself and God I serve that I'm here to serve humanity. And the way I can do that is impact the mothers. And when you impact the mothers, it helps the children to be in school. Doesn't mean that we are marginalizing the men. No, we know sometimes our world is a men's world, but the women lack more opportunities. So our job is to do what we do, coming between government and the people from the grassroots.
Okay, from the angle of insecurity, I don't know if you have closely interfaced with any of these communities that have been displaced one way or the other to see what they probably are dealing with at the moment, and even if you haven't, in what way has it affected these communities? In what way have you seen, and what do you think? What do you project? The next years to be, if this persists. I'm talking about insecurity particularly. There are people that attend, it almost looks as if the target is public schools, right? People that are trying to survive, and you're wondering, these people do not have all the money, and these are kidnappers' big target.
And women are more vulnerable.
Women are more vulnerable. We used to, a child will grow up in the family to feel, oh, I'm protected, I have a mother, I have a father, but today you are likely to be taken away from your parents, from your mother, even with your mother and father in the picture. They're taken to a bush, they're looking at them, seeing these bandits harass and treat you guys in,
in an inhumane way.
Inhumane way.
Yes.
So, I think the tides are changing in Nigeria, particularly in the home front and upbringing. What can children? What is the hope? What hope can we even give to children now to say you're protected, you're safe?
Thank you very much for that question. And children are. We actually did a program recently on Children's Day. And we helping, we brought some children to our studio, to our office, to help them, experience what it means to run an NGO, which they did a fantastic job. I don't want us to, this issue of insecurity is a serious issue. And, I don't want us to promote it or I don't know how I'm going to phrase it. I don't want us to promote it in a way that it results to stigmatizing the people that are experiencing, insecurity. That's why right now, currently, we have many IDP camps of displaced individuals. But we, as an NGO, we have not experienced, among all the communities we have served, we have not experienced a community that was devastated by banditry or any of those kidnapping and all that. We have not, experienced that. Nonetheless, it exists. We just witnessed the one that happened in Oyo State. Borno State is another, madness that's going on that side of the country, However, I do see hope. I see hope that it will get better for our people, for our children. However, our children who have been displaced as a result of this situation that is ongoing in our country, we need to not let them stay back from school, but try to reintegrate them back into an institution, another school, maybe neighboring school, to continue their education, and keeping them mentally sound, is key, including our teachers, not just the children, the teachers. It affects them greatly as well.
So what is like the practical solution now? Taking them away from the distant school to a closer school, a neighboring school, I don't know, but... There's two way of solution. Let's put many ways to resolve this. However, it must be not only taking the children from that they've been traumatized in that environment. And normally when someone goes through a situation like that, they don't even want to go back to that same environment.
Exactly.
Over a decade, I have been involved in counseling, family counseling and youth counseling. So I know what it means and understand what it means for a child or a youth to be traumatized in an environment, and they will not want to go back there. So the best thing, put them in a new school, a changing of environment, for them and their teachers, and then invest in that school, so that community don't become overwhelmed by what the new trajectory of that community. So, supporting that community, and not just government, it takes community. it takes
To deal with
an entire
insecurity.
community to deal with such a situation, so that everyone remains sound, healthy, and continue in the path that they were in.
Okay, I like the fact that
Yes.
you're talking about the psychological impacts that
Yes.
it has on the community, because we're looking at this. But when we look at vulnerability
Yes.
and all that, we see that children in particular, during periods of instability, there's always the place of what emotional and psychological thing does on them. Just like you mentioned, seeing them living in the insecure environment, this becomes a thing of concern. And then I remember some months back or thereabouts where from Imo State there was this community that was devastated. It looks devastated in the sense that it was deserted, rather, that's the right word, deserted because of the issue of insecurity. Insecurity had ravaged the community, that the residents had to flee for their lives, and at some point they had to go check. It looked like a dead zone. So one of the impacts of sin in the course of all of this is that insecurity kinds of steal the livelihood of people. And like we mentioned, the impact goes into women and children. When women lose their home, which they see on a daily and build, the children lose the safe space of going to school and playing around, like every child should have that space.
Absolutely.
In line with your work, since you're cut across the 36 states, you might not have seen it happen to communities you're handling.
Yes.
But looking at the future and what can be done to stem the tide of the impact it has, this unfortunate circumstance or situation we find ourselves as a nation, owing to the work you do, how do you get communities to settle or manage themselves through this whole chaos that we find ourselves?
Thank you. I strongly believe in counseling. I strongly believe in counseling. I did Christian counseling for over a decade, almost 20 years. So, first and foremost, a community has been devastated and abandoned. While we are trying to rebuild and restructure that community to wholeness, we are moving people now to a different community to try to establish them and give them the best possible way forward. In doing so, we need that community and communion together between families, between, among this new community now that we have integrated. We need to now put social workers on the field to come and help nurture these people, counsel them, find out how are they dealing with this issue, give them the platform to speak up. So, because sometimes when these incidents are bundled within us, within a person, within a child or a woman, it provokes that mental situation or mental illness that we always try to avoid. So coming immediately with a counseling team, to nurture these people to health, while they are gradually, getting along with their daily lives. And then the community needs to come together to make that transition, help them make it easy. There's the former Secretary of State of the United States, Madam Hillary Clinton, wrote a book in 1999. The book says it takes a village. It takes a village, whether it's to raise a child, to help your fellow sister or your fellow brother. It takes a village. We come together, and then we also expect the government, state government, and federal government to help in buffering this mentorship, to bring in this community to make it whole, while we are also rebuilding. In the meantime, those who have caused this kind of chaos should also be held accountable, so that we don't have a replication of such incident from one community to another.
Speaking about community, I like the fact that you have your experience. I mean, you've lived abroad and you see how it works there. I don't know if you visited any IDP camps in Nigeria. Do you think we have such reality? Do you think there's such a thing as counseling in our IDP camps? Is it basically about giving them food to eat? Is it basically about providing shelter for them, if at all there is? Do we have that system and structure that helps mentor these displaced persons and make them ready again to go back to society? Or is it just an interim space where they stay where I stand, by the time they have enough to eat, they go back? What is the transition like if you have...
A follow-up to that question, many children that experience this insecurity often leave the school due to insecurity, and they are vulnerable. Most of them are on the streets. What is your organization doing to ensure that, to curb this dangerous trend in the society? Because for the fact that they are on the streets, they pick up so many attitude, so many character, because there's no parents there to caution them, there is nobody there. So what is your organization doing to ensure that, okay, these children are rehabilitated, these children are put in good line to ensure that...
the right morals.
Yes, they are being taught the right moral. Thank you, President.
Very well, thank you for that. Our organization is only 2 years old this year. And for what we have done, I commend the work we have done thus far. And in answering your question, both are similar questions. In answering your question, what have we done to help these children? Kiajer's objective is our main goal is to build, because of the situation we find ourselves, is to build an institution where we accommodate parents, mothers, and children who have been in this kind of displaced situation. Bring them in where they go to school, from kindergarten all the way through high school. We train them, and we will bring trained counselors to assist these children and women to enable them to scale through what they have just gone through. So it's that's our key objective. And we hope to achieve it. And since we have not achieved it as a nation or as a state, whichever state this kind of a thing is happening, we expect there to be a training of, counselors, a training of social workers. We do have social workers. It's a matter of implementing, putting it in a well-structured manner, and dispatching these people, out there to carry out this is humanitarian work, but coming from the government, whether federal or state, or even local government, So yeah, counseling is very important. When you are talking one-on-one with a child or a youth or a woman, you get much out of them, and it enables you to empower them and embolden them to be more resilient. And that whatever they have gone through start to fade away, which is very important. We cannot undermine counseling. It's very important.
Okay, I like that counseling goes a long way. I like the fact that you mentioned counseling, because in our day-to-day lives, we need counseling. We need one who understands us and can mentor us through parts of life, which is very essential. Be it family, be it crisis management, be it humanitarian crisis as well, because that's one area where we see a lot of concerns. And in the case of conflicts and issues, just like we're tackling the issue of insecurity right now, we know that women also carry a lot of burdens.
Absolutely.
When the crisis comes to play, you need to take care of the children, you need to take care of the family, take care of everyone. Women think of others first before themselves, because of the burden of ensuring that everyone is safe. But many communities that once enjoyed that strong social connections now operate from a place of suspicion and fear in Nigeria today.
Of course.
And that is coming from the insecurity trend that we see across the states. We started from where we used to have in the Northeast. The Northeast, it looked like something that was Asian to the North Central, the Southwest. But it's moving across now. We're seeing that. So how does this insecurity affect trust among neighbors and community members living together? Because like you mentioned, it takes a village to build something, and your platform does build and reconnect.
That's right.
How do we go past this phase of life that we're trapped in at the moment because we're actually
You are trying to pin me down into the political world. That's what you are trying to do.
I'm looking at from the work space.
Yes.
Like you said,
Yes.
into two things. Building and,
Yes.
having people come out of the
Yes.
space of, being broken down,
Priority.
parasitizing themselves.
Yes, priority is my key word. In your household or any individual household, you prioritize life. If you need to buy a pair of shoes versus put food on the table, you think of putting food on the table depending on the amount of resources you have available. So in the same way, when it comes to nation building, you also have to prioritize.
Okay.
If you understand that, what is trending in your country, because when you say trending does not necessarily mean just good things. It also applies to negative things. So when something negative is trending or overwhelming your society, you prioritize. So what comes next? Our children are multiplying on the streets, and involved in negative activities and growing up without their parents, especially many of situations where their mothers and fathers are no longer, So these things are growing, these negative trends are happening. So we prioritize. How can we build our children, our youth? How can we enable them to live healthy lives? Because to be honest with you, these are our future. When our generation is gone, we need these people to take this country over and to continue doing the right things to groom the next generation after them. That's how a nation stands. That's how a community stands. So, we prioritize to make sure that these children are well taken care of.
Can we
put them.
Sorry to continue.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can we ever get back to that point where there is this communal spirit?
Yes, we
neighbors. Can Nigeria
the trust. She mentioned the trust. We can build trust again. We can. The more you pray. Yes. Don't miss that. Yes. Number one, you pray, and then number two, I like people voice their frustration through protest. Is a good thing. However, while we can take their rights from them from protesting, I also like a situation where we can sit down together, like and dialogue and discuss. What are we going through? How can we help ourselves?
But in the case of tempers being flamed up and pain, pain is very deep.
It is.
It's deep because these are loved ones.
I know.
Okay, so when we talk of that, I'm open to conflict resolutions in terms of finding dialogue as the best way out of this. Well, it takes one who understands the perspective we're speaking about now to be able to speak to the issue from that.
Yes.
Because the person wants to vent his frustration first.
Correct.
Because you lose a loved one, you never see the loved one again. And back 2014, the Chibok girls issue, let me bring that in.
Yes.
Families have not recovered. Mothers have not recovered. Siblings have not recovered.
Was proper counseling rendered to those people?
There was actually, but I'm saying, a lot of them could act all tough and straight up, but they're still dealing with trauma. Some people still struggle through trauma. It takes a while
for some to come out of it. Yes,
it's just like slipping into depression. Depression has pushed people to suicide. So those are concerns that we're worried about today, because we're looking at the hidden impact of all of this trauma, psychological pain on the life of young people. Like you said, the children and generation of tomorrow, we need to build them up. We need to provide them the safe space.
That's right.
The safe environment, them to grow healthy. We just like Priscilla mentioned, it used to be public schools that was more like it. Like I mentioned, also in the northeast, that was a theme in the northeast. But it's going round. That's the truth. It's going round because there's moved from North Central. It's now the North.
We're hearing it.
So I'm looking at where we want to look at dialogue, we want to look at counseling, but also need to look at the place of the policies. Policies. What can we do from the perspective of your organization? Your 2 years. I want to clap to your job. Amazing. But I want to see how you can collaborate.
Yes.
And we work as a community and get past this phase. Because the truth is, there's fear among people, neighbors. We're joking talking today, and somebody mentioned something to me, and I was like, really? Some people who information is within community. Intelligence gathering is not left to security operatives alone. It takes the community to come out to speak this issue. Someone mentioned something, I'm like, some people don't understand what it means to be was a bandit or whatever. So, as low as in the, I think advocacy needs to start coming out, or training or ideas.
Being your brother, your sister's keeper.
We need to start speaking up to issues.
Yes.
You could have a lot of people who are doing something that they were probably lured into without even knowing the depths of what it is.
That's true.
And it's becoming a problem in the society today.
That is true.
And like I mentioned, it's also affecting more of the women and children. And if we kill that spirit of tenacity, strength,
and resilience,
it becomes a problem.
It is.
So I'm looking at. Well, I'm not speaking to you because I'm a politician.
No.
Or I'm speaking to you because you're someone who's advocating for building, and it takes the community to build for us to have a safe space for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm speaking on all of this.
You're on track with it. You're on point with it. Yes, it takes a community to build. It also takes. Do we have a Ministry of Information? Ministry of Public Information, in our country, right?
We have Ministry of Information.
Ministry of Public, Ministry of Information.
We also have National Orientation Agency, who does the creating of the awareness for people and all of that.
That's it. That's very important. That is, we have to break it down not in English only, and we also have to break it into various dialects and tribes and pidgin English for us all, down to the most local among us, to understand that this is what we're experiencing. Please be alert. Please be aware. Please be your brother and your sister keeper. Please, we have to break it down to society so that society will be, not that they're not aware that we are going through what we are going through. However, while we are breaking it down that these are the things we are going through, we also want to also let them know that we are still a people. We are still a community. There is still love in our hearts for one another. So we can still work together, and it will take you, me, and you to get this done, and then taking our cry to the government and say, we want policies implemented. We want policies implemented to help us. We don't go with anger. We don't go with frustration to our leaders. We express ourselves to them in a way that they can feel the humanity themselves, the weight that we are feeling, even as NGOs. We are always in government institutions, looking for ways to dialogue and to help communities, but we cannot go in there as in an antagonistic way, because we need the government to help the society, even though we said it is the government's obligation to secure lives and properties. Sometimes, or most of the time, government want to work with us. So if they are willing to work with us, let us come with with open hands. Let's not and as we are talking about the negatives, it's always good to always balance it with the positive. Like you talk about the Chibok girls, some were able to come out of this traumatization that they went through. They came out, they were healed. They were made whole. They were, reintegrated into society. Those that is taking them longer time to reintegrate, we need to now come to them and talk to them and help them and nurture them, counsel them, and bring them back into society. I can write you a whole policy to help us, help in this situation. Even our bandits, Sometimes I look at, don't take this as someone speaking up for bad behavior.
Okay.
But I believe there's root cause to every situation. What drives these people into this kind of act that they commit in societies, in different communities? What is going on within their own minds? What kind of trauma that they think they have experienced that's causing them to come against their own fellow citizen, to want to take lives and destroy their property and destroy a whole community. We need to sometimes get in the mind of these people. In America, for example, when somebody shoots in a school and kills students, they declare first and foremost that it's mental situation. Yes,
situation.
And sometimes it is a fact. So instead of putting that person on a firing squad, even though they have perpetrated evil, you want to find out why they did that. That will enable us to prevent others from joining that kind of bad gang to also perpetrate similar evil. So you always have to get in the roots. Psychology. Yes, it's a psychological thing.
Trust, building amongst ourselves, and also all that. I like the fact
we must trust ourselves.
That's the truth. We need to have a lot of checkmates in the
If you
room.
had a loved one affected in all of this, would you still think this way?
All right, we'll take this after
I will answer.
what an eye-opening discussion. Today we've learned that insecurity is not only security issue, it is a family issue, an education issue, and mental health issue, and a development issue.
Well, behind every statistic is a child whose education has been interrupted, a parent carrying fear, and the community struggling to rebuild trust, just like Nieti said.
Of course, because we need to build trust and get space speaking to all of that. And unless we address those deeper consequences, the damage may continue long after the violence itself has ended. Just like we're speaking around the issue of the Chibok girls, and we're hoping that this Oyo kidnap, the ones in Borno, and the likes, that when it ends, hopefully, we get past it and have a better, safe space.
Of course, we will take a short break now. When we return, we'll focus on solutions. How families, communities, government, schools, and civil society can work together to build resilience and restore hope. Stay with us right after the break.
Welcome back to Women's World. Earlier, we explored the hidden impacts of insecurity on families, children, and communities as well.
Now we turn our attention to solutions, because while the challenges are enormous,
yes,
communities across Nigeria continue to demonstrate resilience, courage, and hope.
Still with us is Dr. Tina Orode King, and we are discussing what it will take to rebuild stronger families and safer communities.
Okay, let me start. Because we're talking about solutions.
Yes.
You see a bandit. There are situations where leaders have come out to cry, oh, let's integrate them,
back into society,
back into society,
back and all of that. And the truth of the matter is, you can only advocate for such if you've not had a loved one, if you've not lost a loved one to this whole thing. Because if you ask, the truth of the matter is, I can tell you that there are people that perpetrate these acts that don't even know the gravity of what they are doing. They have just been brainwashed. You understand? They've been told. I don't know. Someone made a joke recently and saying she heard, someone was making a call, right? And then the wife of one of the bandits was saying, my husband has gone for kidnapping. My husband has gone for kidnapping. It sounds funny, but that one can be innocently thinking kidnapping is, the normal buying and selling business.
Yes.
You go to the bush. When you get one person, you just call the family members. They will give you the money. It sounds normal, right? But you don't know that you are causing people pain.
Yes.
There are people like that.
Yes.
So it's I see it as, number one, lack of education, right? A society that does not have its citizens well educated can fall for any of these things. They will be easily convinced.
Correct.
They will be brainwashed to be part of this,
Yes.
I don't want to call it business.
I don't know why you ladies are laughing about it. It's a serious issue.
It can be, it is a reality as well. I strongly believe that this is the reality of some people that are, perpetrating such acts. So how do we go from there? Because we still have communities that say, I don't want to go to school. I don't want anything education. It does not belong to us. And we are all in the same country together. We are living in peace and harmony.
And we're calling for votes. And
we are together, and we can't change it. Somebody will go from here, please.
Yeah, let me start with the first thing you said. If someone that has gone through the situation, and how can you, if I had gone through it, how can I just ask that the person be reintegrated? I'm not an advocate for perpetrators of evil. No, what I'm saying, they are part of the solution. Because we don't know why Mr. J or Mr. P got into that, whether as a young boy or as a youth or an adult. We don't know how he got in. We need to find out. That's what you call a baseline, what you call in the NGO, we call a baseline survey. How did you get into that kind of line of work, that you found your fellow human being unworthy to live or exist? That's why you want to know. By knowing how he got in it, what prompted him, what pushed him, what motivated him, you are able to save many more lives from suffering, like the way that person has devastated a community. You are not you are doing it to help him mentally. You are also doing it for an entire society. Because then that person could tell you, I didn't have a job, so they offered me this and I took it. Or I was under drugs. I was under the influence of drugs, and I didn't see any reason for a better life, so I joined it. They could tell you. That's correct. It is facet. So with that, you can, as a community builder, you can be able to say, okay, this is what we have. You take all that survey you've gotten, you take it to government. This is what we have, and this is how we can solve this solution and make this kind of incident not to happen again. In the meantime, there are people that have already been devastated. I've said it in the previous segments. How we can, as a community, we can't say because this person has gone through this situation, if we bring them into my community might suffer this situation. We can't live our lives based on fear.
In all of this,
yes,
what practical steps can family take to help the children or the vulnerables to feel safe emotionally and supported during these uncertainties time?
I have said it. I've used the word several. Counseling. You have to. I can counsel one youth who's going through emotional trauma. I can spend 2-3 months, sometimes 4 months with that youth for God to bring them back to wholeness. And they do get back to wholeness. I have been in a situation where there was killing in a school in the US. I counseled a student. Children can bounce back even faster than adults. Because adult is thinking about so many other scenarios. Yes, but a child is, okay, I've gone through this. All right, I'm okay. I'm going to be fine. And they know that they have, you see, They are thinking ahead, I'm going to be fine. By the time you give them 2-3 months of counseling, they do bounce back. You know, it's a matter of giving them that opportunity to be made whole again. And as a parent, it is your job to continue to encourage that child. And while that child is going through counseling, you as a parent, as the parent of that child, needs to be going through that as well. You know, and you need not to just sit home and rethinking and reprocessing what you've just gone through. You need to have something doing. You know, as NGOs, keep them busy. As NGOs, we can, you know, help you start something, some kind of business that can help you, you know, keep your mind from your trauma while you are also receiving counseling. And you are also rebuilding. And you are also participating in counseling, in the development of that child that have also experienced the same thing with you.
I like the fact that you're a woman of faith, if it's right to use the word, because you said pray.
That's first.
That's the first thing that comes in first.
That's
because I like Nigeria in one mindset, and Africa as a whole, we're religious in the sense that we put our faith to work in the matter of the circumstance we find ourselves.
That is true.
So let's look at the part that religious institutions can also play in line with our faith as a religious continent and a nation, because we're speaking not just to Nigeria, we're speaking to Africa and the world as large. So let's look at how supporting roles can come from the religious bodies to also augment the efforts of the civil society in rebuilding, because all we want is, yes, there are circumstances, there are challenges. It has happened in generations before our time.
Yes.
And this is our time, and this is happening now.
That's right.
And it's not going to end like during our time. It's going to extend to the next generation. But because we're people of faith, how can the institutions backing our faith support and augment the advocacy that we put out as well?
Thank you. It can in an institution of faith. I believe the churches, they are not only, we thank God for church, but I believe the church, our people of God, we have the power. We have God first. We also have the power. We have the resources. You know, to that pulpit where we stand to preach, we can use it to enlarge our voice, not only to the families that are being affected. That's why I like one pastor I always listen to, Pastor Abioye. Pastor Abioye always talk from the pulpit, always speak about this situation happening in our country in particular, and he always prays about it from his pulpit. That is a good way to use the pulpit. And then also, when you are done praying and talking about it, then you want to go to the next step. The next step of bringing these families, this community that has been devastated, you know, see how the church can bring them in to help counsel them, so that counseling is not weighed on the government institutions alone. So it's a shared burden between the religious institution and governmental institution. So
let me get a bit personal. So you when you came into Nigeria to establish Kiajer Foundation, what did you see on ground that maybe did you at any point feel discouraged? Was it matching your expectation compared to where you were coming from? And how would you rate the Nigerian environment, the support for NGOs, not just you particularly, but I know you've had conversations with one or two other NGOs. What do you think terrain is like in terms of support?
In the systemic support?
Yeah,
systemic support, yes.
If you can compare apples with pear. Okay, that's why I say that is this. The developed nations, the way they would handle, let's be specific, America, the way they will handle, situations like this, definitely will be more an advanced way. Doesn't mean that we lack the power as a developing country, doesn't mean that we lack the ability or the power to do the same. Like I said, we have to prioritize. If once we prioritize, we can find ourselves, having that, building that systemic structure of helping the vulnerable and implementing in that the policies we place, to handle situations like this. There's nothing they are doing in the developing world that Africa cannot do. Yes.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, because I'm looking at what you were looking to see with Nigeria.
Yes.
In the next, I don't want to go too far, let's say in the next 10 years. Owing to,
I would say in the next 5 years.
Okay, 5 years, good. I like that.
Yeah.
Owing to the fact that we're looking at
Yes.
building, rebuilding, because
Yes.
there's a whole lot of wounds, there's a whole lot of hurts.
Yes.
And I'm looking, I always want the best for my nation.
Amen.
Because the truth is, once your nation is balanced and there's a level playing field for the growth, investment,
Yes.
whatever you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So we always need to speak the positive.
Absolutely.
One word, like you said, America is, you hear the word, God bless America.
And they say it all the time.
All the time.
And
And they're spawning the tongue.
Yes.
So that's one mentality, I think. Yes, we're going through a phase right
Yes.
now. But the minute hope is lost, everything
Everything crashes.
So we need to start speaking the positive.
Thank you.
So that we see the Nigeria of our dreams.
Amen.
There's a lot of difficult times right now. Trust me.
Yes.
It's a reform. It's a phase. And we hope that we get past that. And it's Nigeria of our own.
We say God bless Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
Today's
Yes.
conversation reminds us that insecurity affects far more than physical safety. It touches the heart and family life, education, opportunity, and community well-being.
Well, interestingly, that has been a whole lot of conversation, but we've also learned that resilience exists in every community and that hope can be rebuilt when people come together with purpose, of course, Kiajer.